Right, let's kick it off now. Good afternoon, everyone. We've got plenty to get through this afternoon, but before we dive in, I'd like to go over some housekeeping. We encourage you to ask questions through the webinar, so feel free to pop them in the questions tab on the right-hand side of the pop-up on your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. I'll let you know when we kick off that Q&A session. The webinar will also be recorded, and all attendees will receive a link to access the recording at any time. Last month, we released the second annual sustainability report, a report that highlights the sustainability efforts of Australian retailers. This year's report featured a variety of retailers tackling different areas in their sustainability journey. Alex and Bryony are here to represent two of those brilliant companies today, and I'll pass over to Anna to discuss those highlights now. Cool. You're on mute, Anna, sorry.
I've just realized. Yeah, I'm super excited to have both Adorn Cosmetics and Princess Polly here on the webinar with us. It's really great to get chatting after reviewing submissions and picking for the highlights. And I think both of you are doing really great things, particularly in your supply chain, which is the common thread for both of you, but on different, I mean, you're both doing great things overall, but the highlighted topics are for Adorn Cosmetics, like stewardship, waste and emissions reduction, and for Princess Polly, the ethical sourcing and transparency work. So we want to dive a little bit further into that and give our audience some insights beyond what we've discussed in the Spotlight document itself. Let's start with Adorn. So stewardship, just to give the audience some context, means having an environmental strategy where brands take responsibility for anything they produce and manufacture all the way along the value chain, and for minimizing the environmental impact, waste, end of life emissions, any kind of treatment that is required. And you're doing that really well through your refill, return, and recycling program. And that not only reduces emissions and waste, and that's a really great angle, but also probably drives really great consumer engagement. And I'd love to chat some more about that, right? What your key drivers around around those initiatives are, and your successes, and also about any challenges. I'd like to hear how that's been the journey getting into this.
Perfect. Now, I think I've got, 5 or 10 minutes to get through my bit. I could talk all day on this. I love it. Look, I started really on this sustainability journey 15 years ago. So it was quite new then, and obviously very much an educational piece for me and the brand to try and get people to understand, I suppose, the relevance and the importance. And so thank goodness that that's something that, consumers are expecting. Some people still are not too concerned, but I think most just expect that you're doing something. So the first thing, I guess, that I've always done with the brand, and it's really just come from a place of me hating waste. I just don't like waste. Like, I'm the person that will scrape the rest of the lipstick out of the tube, squeeze all of the toothpaste, because I just think, if you can use things for as long as possible, it's not going to landfill as quick. So the questions we ask as a brand very much around anything we produce, whether it's a product, whether it's something we need internally, do we need it, is the question. So one of the things that we started with the Adorn brand was naked packaging. So what that means is if you buy a cream, that's what you get. There's no box, there's no plastic around it, there's nothing, no glorified anything that's going to sell it. It's the product itself. So for me, I just felt that that was unnecessary. It meant that I had to make a decision around not selling in stores, because a lot of the products do need some sort of outside packaging. You just can't have them just sitting there like a mascara or a lipstick. So it was a conscious decision that we made that for the environment, we don't need that excess packaging. So let's not produce things that's not needed. It's all good and well for me or anyone to say this is recyclable, but you still need resources to do that. And so I'm all about not doing things at the very beginning. That's, to me, the
Waste
best form of.
hierarchy, right? Reduce before you then go into recycling. So I love that. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's my whole motto with everything we do. Do we need it? Now, if we do need it, then it's got to fit some criteria around. The next tier for me is, can it be reused, and can it be easily refilled? And so that's the next thing for us. And then lastly, if it can't, then how are we as a brand going to take responsibility for that post-consumer waste? So can we initiate some sort of return it back to us, or can it be biodegradable material? Now, any sort of plastics that are biodegradable still take a number of years to break down, but a lot better than your traditional plastics. And or can that packaging be made by some form of post-consumer waste? So can we produce our packaging from a material that's already been in the environment already, so no new resources are being used? And can that then be recycled by us, which we have a program? It costs us, but we have our customers send their packaging that they can't reuse or refill, and we send that off to a company called TerraCycle to turn that into things like outdoor furniture, for example. So it's really looking at all things and being sensible, because you can't do everything perfectly, and I don't expect, and I think a lot of brands that have started a journey now, it's going to be very difficult for them to undo what they're doing. And the last thing we want is to see a brand that maybe was using something that wasn't so sustainable dump all their packaging just for the sake of looking sustainable and changing the packaging, because then that's still being lost, those resources. So whenever we update or change things, we continue to use the packaging until it's finished. So it's also looking at how can you avoid that as well? Like, how can you avoid changes that then impact maybe what you've already produced? Because the last thing you want to do is be dumping things, whether it's catalogs or cards or packaging. So we're looking at things like QR codes on a lot of our packaging moving forward, so that if there ever is a slight ingredient change or there's something different, then we don't have to change labels anymore or change the packaging. That QR code is linked to the website, so it's always going to get that up-to-date information. So I guess for me, it's very much about looking at what you can do. That it's a cost reduction too, as a like, for me, not even thinking about that, but not producing without a packaging saved so much money for us over 15 years that I don't mind spending a bit of money on the returns, because we're saving, it could be, whether it's 20 cents or $1 a product on packaging. That's a lot over a life cycle. So if you're not concerned about sustainability, there is the monetary value. And just last year alone, we saved over a ton of just the outside packaging that we didn't produce, that we're super proud of. And so and I think in the 10 years or so that we've been doing the refills, it's something like 6 or 7 tons worth of plastic that we've reduced from even being made. So they're the sorts of things that we focus on, and also looking at, where possible, using natural ingredients, because and this is a little bit of a taboo. Like, I'm not anti non-natural. I'm about what's the best for the environment, what's the kindest option, and that's what Adorn really stands for. What's the kindest option when we're producing something? So we've talked about the packaging, but now it's like, what's in it? So can we use natural ingredients? We want to avoid things like your petrochemicals, your mineral oils, those things. But also, let's not produce with natural ingredients that are also playing havoc on the environment. There is a place, I believe, for lab-made ingredients that replicate or emulate a natural ingredient really well, because that is going to help the impact around water, land, nutrients in the soil. So I'm not a big push of just go natural, because that is not always, I mean, we can look at palm oil as an example. It's not always the best environmental choice. There's some amazing lab replicas of natural ingredients that are just as good but less damaging to the environment. So that's another thing we look at. What we also, I suppose, pride ourselves to is the journey to the customer. And again, it saves us money as a company, but it also avoids unnecessarily using your petrols and your petrochemical and your oils and all of the transport emissions, because we are so heavily involved with our refill program. We sell thousands of them. Equally as many people buy our refills as full size. But what that means is you've got these skinny little sachets that we're getting sent to us, as opposed to these big jars. So it's saving room on the ships or whatever, the planes, it's saving room so that can then store more things on its way over. So there's less emissions there. There's less packaging needed because, you know, the refill sachets don't require all of this extra padding to protect it from breaking. And then, of course, when we're sending this to our customers, we don't need to wrap it and pack it with anything in particular, because it just slides into a smaller envelope or a smaller biodegradable bag. So from every step of the way, not making something or making something that is as minimal as it can be is not only a cost saving to the business, but it's absolutely a huge saving on the environment. So these are the things that I'm super passionate about, and it's always looking at, you know, how do we become paperless? How do we reduce, you know, storage? How do we continue small batch production? That's another thing we're very proud of. We manufacture locally, and again, I encourage people where possible, where it makes sense, if you can manufacture locally, again, lowering emissions because you're not traveling, things are not traveling around, but of course, you know, you're supporting the local economy, but it's better for the environment. So, you know, it's looking at all these steps along the way that I think make a huge collective input as a whole at the end. And I think we can all do these little things that make such a huge difference.
That's amazing. Thank you for I think if you've covered other topics as well, like a whole playbook on how to reduce emissions in the business and how to reduce waste, like not only on the packaging and stewardship, product stewardship front, but also in logistics and all over the business. So if other brands want to find inspiration, they can contact you and look at what you're doing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure,
Um,
Anna.
I'm gonna, well, we could talk about this forever, but I'm gonna switch over to Alex to hear a little bit about their work in the supply chain. So we obviously know rising global inequality, human rights issues in global supply chains. There's been lots of call outs of retailers. You know, treating workers fairly is a non-negotiable these days. Unfortunately, a lot of brands are doing a bit more of a compliance exercise still. When, you know, especially in Australia, there's the modern slavery regulation and there's risk management and due diligence required. But I think what you've been doing as a team within Princess Polly has been quite in depth and a bit of a standout. So I'd love to hear more about your considerations around this work, and especially also around the challenges, right, and how to overcome them. Because if you want to have this transparency, you need to have conversations with your suppliers, with your manufacturers. You need to ask for a lot of information that they might consider proprietary. How do you fare if they, for example, do not want to share information? So I'd really be curious to hear some more insights.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you, Anna, and thank you for, yeah, I guess the opportunity and really recognizing, you know, hit the nail on the head in that we're not about just, you know, we're not about box ticking, we're not about compliance. You know, the journey for us has been looking at how we can do this authentically and meaningfully and really have that power to transform the experiences of people in our supply chain. Bryony, I love that you started from 15 years back. I can reflect a little bit on the Polly journey. You know, we're actually a 13-year-old company, but it's very different in that we did not set up on a foundation of really focusing on ethics from the start. And So very different journey around like bringing this in and learning and, you know, knowing, understanding over time and then reacting to that information. Yeah, 13 years ago for us, Princess Polly, started out and started by really building these strong partnerships with our suppliers. And for us, I think that's been the strength of the program, is that the suppliers that we started with are still the ones that we work with today. And that's really our superpower when it comes to some of those challenges. But I'll get there. Let's start with a bit of, that journey. What we always say is that we were always the good guys, and that was our mantra. I don't think we had the word, responsible purchasing or things at the time, but our idea was always value those win-win relationships and partnerships with our suppliers and build that environment of trust and honesty between us. And obviously, Princess Polly is not the same business it was 13 years ago. And so to really get to the place we are now, there's been many changes to how the business operates that we have gone through in partnership with our suppliers. About 3 years ago is where properly our ethical sourcing program was born. And I like to say really that there is a bit of a journey when it comes to ethics. I think compliance is maybe that first step. And if that's all that brands are doing, at least, we want to celebrate that, in that is helping someone. But it's really important to get that to those next stages. And for us, we see it as compliance through to engagement, through to empowerment. And that's our goal. But we by no means think that we're up, that best end of the spectrum. We just think we're trying really hard, where we're at the moment, and making sure we're really authentic in what we're doing and making that difference. So over the past 3 years, our program, has been very focused on, starting with tracing and understanding who are the people who are contributing to our products and what does that look like. And I guess that's where it goes beyond compliance, in not just asking the surface level questions, but really wanting to know and turning over rocks that, might reveal something that, is uncomfortable and unpleasant. But for us, that is where we gain the power, in that is something that we've uncovered that we can influence to change and improve and actually see that transformation in our supply chain. So asking all those questions and understanding our product, our inputs, materials, where's the embroidery, where's the graphic on the front, where's the material being dyed, asking all those questions and getting deeper in. And then as we find things, looking at them, asking more, assessing what those risks are in each site. We have a really thorough auditing program, but it's much deeper than that. We have a 2-person team on the ground in China as well, there to support our factories, because that is where most of our supply chain is. And really building that support base. We care a lot about our worker voice. We can't create a program to help people if we're not hearing from them and what they really need. It's not about making assumptions that we know the best. It's asking, what do we need to build in, and how can we, have the best impact? And then I guess another part that we're really proud of is our training, really jumping in there, empowering our workers, but also then, capacity building, like helping our factory managers. We have to understand that we're a business, and what motivates our suppliers might not actually be providing this ethical experience, but even if it's not, we need to explain it in a way to them that they're on this journey with us through that partnership, and then have the skills to create that environment for the workers. So that capacity building piece for us has been huge in sharing that responsibility. And that's really that engagement of engaging the workers, engaging the people who own the factories, who manage the factories, and making sure we're all on this together. So challenge wise, IP, it's a huge one, and I think it's a really good one to discuss. To be able to make these transformations, we do need to know sensitive information. And I'm sure anyone online, who works for a business would understand that it's hard. We have to empathize in that asking people for this information is really sensitive and it is really scary, and that's where I guess we have had that, superpower of those long relationships and that history of saying, we're going to change our shipping, but this is how we do it and this is how we come together, and you're not going to get left behind. And that's the attitude we really took to this and have continued to take. So our suppliers know that, yeah, we need them as much as they need us, and we want to work with them as much as they want to work with us. So we visited, we jumped on Zooms, that team on the ground in China to explain it. It's all, I think, about that slow progression. Like, it is 3 years, and we never just, jumped in and said, you must do this by tomorrow. We've said, these are standards. We need to help you reach these standards. Like, there will be a cutoff point, but don't be scared by the cutoff point. Be assured that we're there with you to help you move there. And, I would be like misleading to say that there have been, some people who have dropped off that journey in that it really didn't resonate, but we're proud of how many that we have continued coming through with us on this and just what we've achieved in partnership with them. So I guess, yeah, in terms of that challenge, that's my number one advice really, is that those relationships and that trust between you is the most important foundation. It's how we've been able to achieve what we have in such a quick turnaround. But yes, as Bryony said, could talk about this forever, but I'll hand back to you, Anna. That's, I
I
guess,
might
the human
actually
right.
take over this one because that brings me to my question about transparency. So, both Princess Polly and Adorn Cosmetics, you're very transparent about your respective sustainability journeys. And we know that customers are making informed decisions when they shop. And with greenwashing claims rife, they're being targeted by the ACCC recently. It's really important companies don't jump the gun and make broad or even false claims about their
Yeah.
sustainability journeys just to secure sales from this environmentally conscious customer base. So, what I want to know is how you approach transparency, what steps you take to prevent greenwashing, and I might kick that off by passing it to Bryony, and then we'll go back to you, Alex.
Well, it's Zero Emissions Day today, which I thought quite pertinent for this conversation. And one of the things that we have been working on to have released and have add to our transparency is our focus on sustainability report. And I've actually got this sitting here, and that will be all about the brand, all of our initiatives, what the outcomes of those have been. It's something that will be available on the website for people to have a look at. So for me, I think transparency is just making this information available at every touch point that your consumers are able to access you. So of course on your website, not just hidden somewhere, somewhere that you're proud of it. And I think also, anything through your socials, wherever it might be, having access to say some sort of report or because there's so many things you can save in your socials now, just have that there. What are you doing and what are the outcomes of that as well? It's all good to say, oh, our products are recyclable or whatever, but how are you quantifying that? And is it really even getting recycled? Like, how do you know? So I think it's about that, being transparent, but giving people that understanding that it is actually taking place. I think that for me, what frustrates me as a consumer myself is when, and I ordered something not long ago, and I was so excited to find a household thing that came in refills. So I ordered the refills, and this refill bladder or sachet or whatever you want to call it came delivered to me. It was inside its own box, as well as all of this other filling and then this other massive box. And it actually pissed me off, to be honest. I was really annoyed, really annoyed. Now, that's greenwashing to me. Don't be selling something and getting, the small percentage of people that might not actually acknowledge the other stuff because they're like, oh, it's a refill, but it's all the other things around it. Like, don't do things to be seemingly doing the right thing. For me, I just think that's not kind. It's not kind to the environment for you to just be saying one thing, but everything else around what you're doing shows that it's not a refillable or a best practice product. So, for me, I think that greenwashing is, just talking about things that aren't really as great as what they are, and just trying to capitalize on people are trying to do the right thing. They really are. And not everybody can afford to be eating organic or doing all the right things or separating all their rubbish. They're time poor. And so give people the opportunity to make small incremental differences in an honest way. And it's about greenwashing is about having no integrity and not being honest, as far as I'm concerned. And so, it's about being really particular about how and why you're doing something. And, as I said before, being able to actually demonstrate that what you're saying is so amazing about your company is actually taking place. And, there's some data or at least you're reporting on that.
Fantastic. And Alex, I know that you covered it a bit, that transparency with your suppliers. Just wanted to hear about your customer approach in that regard.
Yeah, no, love what you're saying as well, Bryony, and yeah, really agree that the evidence behind it is key, and having that transparency out there so important. That's the most basic piece in back up what you're saying. For us, our core value is customer obsessed, and if anyone's seen on our website, jumped in, you'll see that everything we say about sustainability, it's targeted at our customer. It's not technical and it's not corporate jargon. It's done in a way that has all the validity and all the proper backing behind it, but explained so that you don't need a sustainability degree to get in and make an informed decision. But it's just building that trust, everything backed up. The difficulty about greenwashing is we're all working on different targets. There is no standard instruction out there about what is a proper claim and what isn't, when it comes down to what is the evidence you should provide, and is this sustainable, is this one not. So that then means that we're all making our own rule books out there. And so I think what's so important for us is coming back to exactly that evidence piece. And are we explaining, not just the claim, but what is required to make that claim? So for us, let's say saying 100% of our sites are audited. There's the overall claim. That might be where some people stop and that's all they want to know. But then there's all the information there about audited to what standard and how frequently, and what was the performance and the scores of each audit, and what improvement is happening, where are we getting back in, where are the common issues, and what are we doing to fix those. And it's all there. So the simple message is there, but then the evidence is there too, and we can see that walking the talk. And that's so important for us. If we didn't have that evidence, the claim wouldn't be there in the first place. And that's how we approach everything.
Doing better, isn't it? I think if you can see a brand doing better or doing their best to be better, no one's going to criticize you for that. But I think it's when it's the blatant, obvious, where there's no integrity backing what's being done, that's the frustration. And I think that's amazing that you do that, Alex, that you can actually say that you go out to your sites and how often, and, you give people, those consumers, I know about 85% of our customers, we survey them, and they absolutely love the sustainability side of what we do. But it's, as you said, it's knowing that we checkpoint all of this along the way. And so, it's great to know that you guys actually go out there to your suppliers and have those hard conversations, and keep them accountable as well.
Yeah. I think, it's also that trust through honesty. And, it's one thing for us to say 100% audited, but then sweeping under the rug that, and then we find things during the audits. And I think that's a thing for us as well. We want to build trust by saying we're not perfect, we're working on it, and we'll keep improving every day. But here's our journey, and we're transparent with the good and the bad. And
absolutely.
that's so key as well. Don't just make it all seem rosy.
Mm.
Yes.
I was gonna say, Alex, that's a key point we always see with our clients. Like, but what? I can't show any failures or mistakes or roadblocks. But taking the consumers on the entire journey with all of its challenges and hurdles, I think that drives that honesty and that trust, because you're not trying to be perfect, and so absolutely key. Love that.
That brings me to another social issue I'd love to discuss with you guys. Cost of living. It wouldn't be a webinar in 2023 if I didn't bring it up. From the data that we've gathered, it's very clear customers want to shop sustainably and support these ethical brands, but it does unfortunately come at an additional cost at this point. In 2023, there's actually been an 8% rise in shoppers who are not willing to pay extra for products made from ethically sourced or sustainable material, and that's due to these rising costs. So I wanted to hear from you to see how rising costs have affected sustainable sourcing and how you consolidate that to avoid passing on the costs to the customer. And in the case that you have to, where do you make compromises, and do you have any advice for any retailers in this tricky time?
I'll jump in there, I suppose. Look, for me, I think the way we've costed our products has always been on the potency of the ingredients and using the best ingredients that are available, and not compromising on our formulas because we might be able to sneakily add something else in instead, or put some fillers in there and whack one good ingredient and then tell everybody it's got vitamin C in there, but it's a percentage of the product. So for us, it's about producing professional grade formulations, and so the expense for us is there. The packaging, and yes, there's shipping, and there's a lot of things that have gone up in price, but I think again it comes back to the fact that we're very much a do more with less led brand. So we don't, as I said, have the outer packaging. We're able to minimize our costs around storage and warehouse because we're not holding, volume. So all of these little costs that we save really make it easier for us to have more of I suppose, foundation around our pricing. That's not to say we don't increase the prices. We have to at times, but then we're just honest about it, and we'll just say that the ingredients of this particular product have gone up. So rather than sort of doing one sweep of price increases, it's really dependent and varies on the formula of any product at any particular time. And I guess again it comes back to what you were saying before, and is if you've got transparency in your business, I would think, have loyalty. And I know our brand has serious loyalty. We have a private group, for example, that's got 8,000 women in there. They're so Adorn centric. It's crazy. And the beauty of that transparency is that it garners that trust, the loyalty. And so then when you actually do feel that you've got to put your prices up or change something, maybe there's instances where I've felt, look, putting the price up will be prohibitive. So look, we do have to do that whole shrink it a little bit so that we can keep it at the same price. Don't be like some of the big brands where you get 5 chips in a packet all of a sudden when you used to get 100. That's annoying. Tell your customers, and that's what we do. We'll say to them, look, we juggled with the decision of putting the prices up because aloe vera is now this or whatever. We felt that was prohibitive, so now rather than that we've reduced. Just tell them. And one of the things that we have also done to help with I suppose economics and people's purse, and not everybody is going to be able to do this, but we've introduced travel size. And so whilst we call it travel size, it's really about creating a mid entry point or a lower entry point to those that want to continue using our beautiful products, but maybe there's a time in their lives where it's a bit more difficult to do so they can get the travel size version to just keep them ticking over. So I think it's about looking at ways that you can still engage your customers with what you've got, but maybe looking at different sizes or different types, maybe more of a basic line as opposed to something that's more expensive. And that's really how we tackle that. And it's been very well received by our loyal customers.
Love that transparency. That's amazing to be able to have those conversations straight with the most loyal group. Yeah, maybe I can talk about, I guess, a bit of a different end is, I guess, with the increasing prices. Yeah, I guess what we have tried to implement as a business to counter them as well. So it's a fact, yes, cost of living's definitely going up. And so then is, the materials and things that we're putting into our product. But especially for us, it's less about the cost of that base material, but for us, it's the transition. If we had offered a conventional material for so long and now we're trying to offer that sustainable product, how do we keep that level? And yeah, so I think our mission as of 2 years ago transformed to try to create this like pyramid of 3 elements. It's on trend, sustainable, and accessible. And accessible, the price is a huge piece there, and making sure our customers can purchase the product. So there are lots of sustainable on-trend brands that are completely cost prohibitive, and then there are a lot of on-trend accessible brands that are doing nothing for the environment, and we want to make sure we're there in that 3, so we can't sacrifice any of the 3 elements. So something that we've done is really look at, well, why are the prices going up and why are the sustainable materials more expensive? And a lot of that is that evidence part, that really collecting the proof that goes behind it for our consumers, which we definitely want to do. That's core to this. So something that we've transitioned to as a business is actually separate to the social responsibility team. We also then have a fabric team, and they run a stock market for our suppliers to be able to come in and purchase the materials from us instead of going out themselves to the market. It creates more of that upfront purchase power so that we can bring those costs lower and then still have that on-trend product in those small volumes, the same way we've always been able to offer. So I guess we were authentic to our business model, but trying to make it easier. And I guess it comes back to those strong partnerships. That was a real sticking point. And if we wanted to create that accessible product for our customer, we had to get involved further up. And so I guess that's a little bit of the avoiding passing on the cost.
Yeah,
But absolutely, you're right that sometimes it's
it's
impossible. Sometimes.
yeah. And I think what you just touched on, which was good, Alex, is that you might bring some things in local or change just so you can get the smaller volumes. And I think some businesses can get caught up, or people can get caught up in their margins so much that, especially in fashion, correct me if I'm wrong, that there'd be a huge amount of waste coming in from maybe things that don't fit or don't last or whatever. And I think what you're doing by having better materials is, and again, it's about just educating the customer, but letting them know that these materials last longer. So yeah, you might spend a bit more, but again, I think it's about educating them around that. Yes, it's more, but it's the value you create around that. And like, yeah, the quality. So you might be able to, okay, look, you might get a smaller margin by getting something manufactured locally, but the cash output for the brand is less because you're able to get a smaller amount. And then, of course, there's less waste if it doesn't sell and all of those things. And so, I think that's, about being transparent around why we do the things that we do, and letting them understand that, it is an opportunity for them, like with us with the skincare and the makeup. Yes, it's not a cheap brand, but you don't need as much. It lasts longer, so it stretches your money longer. So I think there's the value that you're creating around your fabrics and localization of it.
Definitely. I think it's also that ongoing lifetime that, our customer it's a woman in her teens, her 20s. Like, when our customer finishes with the product, they finish loving it, they put it on Depop and Marketplace and our own resale site, and the product needs to be the quality that it lasts the first love, the second love. And so that is also just that increased value upfront as well
Yeah.
in, it's not a wear once and throw away item. So I guess that justifies also, if there are those increases, it's because also the product quality has improved.
Mm. I love that. So
Fantastic.
do you actually offer your customers an opportunity to sell their stuff back through your site? Is that what you just mentioned?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
they're getting to make money as well. Like I love that.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
And we don't take a cut of that. It's all for them.
So unfortunately, time has absolutely flown, and we won't have time for our Q&A session today. But if anyone in the chat does have any questions for anyone on the panel, you can reach out to all of us on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about the report itself, my contact details are in the back. So that does bring us to the end of the session. I want to give our speakers a huge thank you for the time they've taken for the webinar today. Fantastic insights, really great discussions. I wish we could go on all afternoon. I hope everyone here gained some actionable insights from the session. And if you'd like to find out more about the Sustainability Spotlight report, you'll all receive a download of that after the session, as well as a recording. Anna, Alex, Bryony, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to our fabulous audience for attending today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
Thank
much.
you.
and Alex. This was really great.